Greetings and welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, we are here talking with PizzaLovingNerd and Tech Haberdashy on Pine64 products. And Pizza was just about to walk me through what we might be able to do because my ARC system, the only one that was working perfectly fine, had a total snafu and is dead. So we'll see if we can figure out how to get back in there and whatever else that is. But anyway, how you guys doing, everybody?
Pretty good.
Good.
Doing
Yeah,
good.
it's
Busy
way too
Saturday
early in the
morning
for you. Yeah. It's Saturday afternoon here, but it's still Saturday morning.
Oh yeah, it
Pizza
is. That's right. It is technically morning.
Pizza is a
afternoon
time
now.
traveler. I mean, it's still the morning for him, so
It's 9 a.m.
All right.
for me.
All right. So I'm gonna have you guys talk for a second because I'm looking for a viable solution right now for the tab, and I just about 2 minutes ago put Debian on it. I need to get logged into the internet here. So somebody say something for me so I can get logged into the internet.
Potato.
So,
More than that.
We're talking
We're talking
about
more than
since we're talking
potatoes.
about Pine64. Why don't we
Yeah.
say
Talk
what
about
Pine
64.
products we have? I have the Pinebook Pro, which had its ups and downs since I've owned it about 10 months now. What about you, Pizza? What do you got?
So I have a Pine phone. I owned it since I think January, and I love it. I really like Linux Mobile because desktop Linux to me isn't that interesting anymore. So watching mobile OS go from nothing to becoming more and more usable, watching that is kind of cool to watch. And that is why I like my Pine phone so much.
Right on. Was it you or Tom? Didn't somebody have a Pine Time?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. I thought somebody
They
did.
have developer kits out for them right now, but they aren't supposed to be daily used yet, and they aren't sealed. So, which means that there's like two parts of your Pine Time, with one of them with like all the internal stuff and one of them with the screen. And since it's open, it's not sealed, so it's mostly for testing, not really anything you can wear.
Okay, so I have the Pine Tab, of course. I'm going to be talking about the Pine Tab and the experiences with that. And I think, Tech, you happen to have the Pine Book Pro, you said. And
Pro, yeah.
you have a good review video about it that some people are still finding and looking at.
Two, actually.
Two videos.
I have my original one, and then about a month later, I put Manjaro on it. This was before Manjaro was the from the factory OS.
All right. Okay.
So I did a follow up about a month after I got it.
Yeah, I also have a Pine Tab, but mine has an issue with the SD card reader. So in order to get it to boot off of the SD card reader, I have to like shove it in where it gets stuck in the slot. And then I still have issues where it still disconnects every once in a while. It's like trying to run Linux on a USB off of a USB port that's almost broken. And then when I want to take the SD card out, I have to open up my Pine Tab and take it out. So but I am getting a replacement one.
Is Pine64 sending that to you, or did they make you buy a new one?
Well, they sent me the original one too for my channel. And
okay.
So since the one that they sent me has that issue, they're just sending me another one to replace the one they sent me.
Well, that's nice of them.
Yeah. And one thing I'm excited to announce, the Pine64 community updates that they have once a month. I'm going to be making video versions of those. And the first one comes out tomorrow on the Pine64 YouTube channel.
Excellent.
Oh, very cool.
So yes, so Pizza is officially a Pine64 guy. Like
Oh,
who
no,
knew
he's-
all these software packages, that and ICE and a few other things, all run by Pizza, high school kid. Are you even in high school yet?
Yeah, I am. I'm in the
Okay, you are in
year.
high school now. All right, good deal.
All
And
right,
that's the power and the amazingness of Linux, and why there is still hope for this world, people. There is hope for this world. Except
Just
I'm
a
going
little
to
bit.
give up a little bit of hope because Debian for the Pine Tab does not ship with a terminal.
Oh, wonderful.
Well,
If nothing else, I'll kind of go in the back door and install one there. But I'm going to see if there's one in the GNOME software store. That's good.
Ubuntu Touch, since it's the only operating system I can run on my Pine tab because of my SD card issue, I've noticed that it's gotten significantly better. Like the trackpad actually works about 50% of the time now, and the keyboard works a lot more consistently, and it has a bunch of speed boosts.
Yeah, I have not found any bonuses. I get in there and update it frequently, and I can't tell any difference. Well, maybe we'll get into some of that. Let me check in on the comments, and then we're going to go ahead and get into maybe some slightly more organized. Not really. I can't seem to find terminals in the software store, though. That's kind of sad. Okay, well, I'll get in there somehow. Anyway, Pedro, how's it going there? What do you mean Linux alternatives? So the Pine tab is going to be designed as an alternative to an iPad or a Samsung tablet. The Pine phone, of course, is a Linux-based phone rather than an Android or a iPhone. Of course, the computers, they're just computers. But anyway, so that's kind of what we're looking at. Of course, there's Librem and there is Pine. Librem is taking the approach where they are developing the hardware and the software all together. Pine is taking the approach where they're saying we're just working on the hardware, we're releasing everything, and we're letting the community come up behind it. Those are basically the two opposite extremes. I would like to see them maybe take a little bit more approach, but just because I'm finding a lot of weird inconsistencies in my experiences with it right now, just being the Pine tab. We'll talk about the positives and the negatives of that in a bit. Let me get to the bottom of the comments here. Pine64 had 2 with the Wi-Fi boards added, could not find any support for them. Let's see. We are live already. It's having a small technical issue. Be running here in a moment. We are live. Okay, yes, we are indeed live. All right. Tom's trying to find his mask.
It's been looking for it since the pandemic started.
Yeah, I've been looking for my mask. Yeah. Hopefully Pine64 will be used for unlock bootloader around Android phones as a custom ROM. No, it's not. It's different hardware and things. I think Pizza can probably talk more about that. Is Pizza old enough to be a mod? Yes. Well, it's not your age. It's your trustworthiness. There's a difference, okay?
Yeah, it's your competence.
I trust Pizza. That's why, okay? All right. So anyway, let's go ahead and Pizza, you want to give us a quick rundown on the Pine phone? You said you really like it. What do you really like about it and such?
So, one, it is the design of the phone is completely user replaceable. So they recently came out with the new main board for the Pine phone, where when they originally sold it, you could only buy it with 16 gigs of RAM or 16 gigs of storage and 2 gigs of RAM. And it had some hardware issues that the newer ones don't have. But now you can get a version with 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of storage that fixes a lot of the hardware issues that were important. So what you can do is you can take your Pine phone, Braveheart. Let me go get my Pine phone.
As soon as we find the Pine.
All right, my Pine phone is missing in action right now, but it's probably in the other room. But anyways, so I can open up my Pine phone, take out the main board, and swap it with the newer main board with more RAM and more storage and the fixed hardware issues. So if you bought an older one, you aren't screwed over, and you don't have to buy a second one if you want the hardware issues fixed. And they're even giving Ubuntu Touch Edition owners and Braveheart Edition owners like me, they're even giving them a discount for being early adopters when you buy the board. So I like that it's modular, and also I just like watching the progress of the OSs unfold. At first, they were barely usable. You get 3 hours of battery life. You get no camera support, and then we were watching Crest get added and the battery life get better. We were watching the camera drivers start to get maintained, so the camera started working, and it's just cool to see a phone that a Linux phone per se that started being able to not be usable at all to becoming more and more usable as we speak.
Okay. Tech. I am all just about there, and there is actually a terminal on Debian. It's just called King's Crossing. I've never heard of that as a terminal. So.
Oh, okay, that's unique.
Okay.
My experience with the Pinebook Pro has been a little bit different, and I approach things differently than Pizza does. I'm not a developer, and I'm not really interested in coding in that level. I'm more concerned about with like usability from an end user experience, because it's kind of what I do. It's kind of what I've done my whole IT career, is kind of a customer service, tech support, and then working like high level. I'm working in an enterprise now. But we all have to make sure everything works, but we're not programming per se. So for me, it's not the enjoyment of watching things get better. It's the enjoyment of using something that's not an Intel based system and seeing how it functions and making sure that it works well. I mean, I'm at the point I just hate Intel processor, anything with Intel processor. I'm thinking about throwing away all of my Macs because they have Intel in it. So I love the fact that it's an ARM based processor very much.
So you'll be getting a new Mac because,
Absolutely not. You didn't cover that in your news yesterday, but boy, yesterday, let me tell you, yesterday was a tough day for me and Apple. So, so we can discuss that on a whole different podcast. But yeah, I like that I like the Pinebook Pro for what it stands for and the hope of what computing can go to on a non-Intel platform. Unfortunately, it's not really ready for prime time. And I have a lot of criticisms about the Pinebook Pro, and they primarily stem from the fact that it's advertised as a ready to go, ready to use product right now. And the truth is it's got a lot of shortfalls and it's not really there yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm closer to Tech as far as caring more for usability rather than the developer end. And we had, Pete's a developer, so he does a lot of good development stuff. I'm a business guy. I want to make sure, like, as I'm building my publishing company right now, and nearly everything we do is all free and open source software. From the servers we're using, the software, the website implementation, our meeting schedules, our cloud distribution, everything we're doing is free and open source software. And we're just figuring out the best ways to deploy all of that. And for me, I just want to get in here and make sure that whatever we're using is going to be good and usable and viable. And that's really what my approach is. And my experience with the reason I wanted to get a Pine Tab is eventually when I am less dependent on more client interactions is I want to be able to drop smartphones and maybe just carry a small tablet with me with just a mobile hotspot. Turn on the mobile hotspot when I need to access something on the go, boot up the little tablet, access what I need to access on the go. And I want to move into that general direction rather than relying on a smartphone and things like that. And I want to do that through Linux if I can. And so I wanted to look at that. And then one of the things I wanted to see then as well is, can I get a tablet and a device that would behave as a very small, portable and viable computer system? So those are the things I was interested in the Tab, which are two separate different things, and I'll be addressing both of those throughout the course here. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I'm not sure if Pizza's still here or not, if he stepped away.
Yeah, it looks like he had to step away.
Looks like he stepped away. All right.
I'm still here.
You're still here. Okay.
I'm looking for my Pine phone. My room got cleaned yesterday, so I don't know where.
Okay. All right.
I cleaned up my room and I don't know where anything is.
Yeah.
It's the mind of a genius.
Yeah, there you go. And so, Tech, why don't you give us let's go ahead and start with, should we start with the cons or start with the pros? Pros or cons first?
Which one's going to be more interesting to talk about?
Oh, definitely cons. Because people love the controversy. And so if we start with the cons, we can end the video on a high note.
Okay, I was going to say my cons list is a lot longer than my pros list. That's for sure.
Or should we do pros first? You know what? Let's do pros first for the people just want to catch that. We're going to start with the good news and we're going to end with the bad. Unfortunately, the bad news might be a little bit bigger.
We can end
at
on a
this
hopeful
time.
note. There's still hope. There's still hope for the future.
But the take home though is that they are still actively developing this stuff. The Pine Tabs are not even ready for release yet. So these are the things we have to keep in mind. So go ahead and start, Tech, with your pros.
Well, pros, which I already covered one, no Intel processors. Thank the Lord. um, uh, Honestly, I think the best thing about this system by far is the screen. Like for $200, this screen has no business being this good. It really doesn't. It is a fantastic screen. Um, it's it's and I hate to say, I wish the keyboard's really nice too. It's hardware wise, like the physical feel of the system is pretty good. Unfortunately, I wish I could have had like a huge like list of things that I could spout off as being like amazing. But without getting into the tinkering aspects of using the switches, there's little dip switches on the board where you can actually reset the system, or you can turn off eMMC, or you can turn off Wi-Fi and all these kinds of things. I think there's even, I read a while back, that some of the keyboard function, like the function keys, are actually programmable. So I think somebody made a firmware to modify that at some point. So there's a lot of things you can do with it. My biggest gripes are just in terms of the actual usability. Unfortunately, just doesn't seem to be there, and I don't know if that's a hardware limitation or if that's a development limitation for the software. But great screen, great keyboard, good build overall. There's no proprietary screws, so Apple.
There you go.
Nothing like Apple. So there's that. It's easily upgradable. I actually put a 256 gig NVMe drive in here, and it has been the best upgrade for the system by far. I use it only for storage, but it doesn't boot up like unreasonably slow. So I didn't feel, and at the time I put it in there was no support for booting from the NVMe drive. I don't know if that's changed. So it just boots off the internal storage, but it's having anything on that NVMe drive, it is super fast. And it actually, I've done some benchmarking tests on there. It actually does seem to actually saturate the NVMe bandwidth, the PCI lanes on it very well. So it comes close to what's rated for the specs on the drive. So there's a lot, hardware-wise, it's really good. I wish I could say that's not the case for the webcam. Hardware is good except for the webcam. How about that? So,
okay.
Those are my pros.
Okay. Pizza, what are your pros? I guess you might take the Pine Tab or the Pine phone, or if you want to talk about the Pine Tab, you can as well, but prioritize the phone.
Okay, I can talk about both, but I'll let you talk about the Pine Tab more since I'm kind of here for the Pine phone.
And your Pine Tab is broken.
Yeah. So, one, I do like how it's upgradable, but also I like how the software is something that you can control. Android, you don't know what kind of data collection or anything they're doing in the background. Whereas on the Pine phone, all of the operating system, well, most of the operating systems are open source. You can see the code, make sure nothing's collecting data on you. And yeah, plus it's awesome to be able to use your desktop apps on a phone. And I really like how this is kind of something Purism started, but it also helps Pine a lot. I really like LibHandy, how I can use any of my GDK desktop apps that I use every day on my computer, and they just fit on my phone and also work really well on a phone. And because of that, it's really easy to make apps for the Pine phone. I ported ICE from Peppermint OS. I made that work on the Pine phone so you can get web apps working. And it only took me about a day to do a full redesign that works on the Pine phone. And so it's really easy to port apps to it. So in a developer aspect, Pine phone's kind of the dream phone. However, for a consumer, I am still using my Android phone. Yeah, I guess I'll get more into that during the cons part. And I also like, again, the screen. Pine64 makes really good screens. Less so on the Pine Tab. The Pine Tab is a little bit lower resolution than I want it to be. It's the same screen as the Pine phone, but since it's a bigger device, you can see kind of pixel. It's not as the pixels per inch are way lower, and you can actually see a lot of the pixels on the screen. But the Pine phone does have an amazing screen. The viewing angles are amazing. And yeah, I completely agree with Tech Hab that Pine64, for what you pay for their devices, their hardware is way too ridiculously good for what you're paying for. But part of it is a lot of their devices, they don't make that much of a markup. Like the Pine phones, for example, the markup they add goes to open source projects for mobile phones. So I think that's part of the reason why it's so good for so cheap, because other companies add such a big markup to their products.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Good. So my biggest pros on running the tab. Now I bought the tab with the keyboard. I purchased it. It was not given to me, and I got it. And what I can say is that the hardware itself, when you get it working, actually works really well. The software is yet to be desired, and we'll get into that in the cons section. But I was able to take this guy and have an entire Arch operating system that was completely production. In fact, I wrote a chapter of my book on it. The only thing that I use on a regular basis I was not able to get to work is the LibreTools LibreOffice plugin. Or the language tool LibreOffice plugin would not work for some reason. Not sure exactly why. That's the only thing that I found I was not able to do. But I could literally turn the thing on. It functioned just like a mini computer. It also is bootable off of the SD card or off of the internal. Right now, you can't install a new operating system onto the internal, but I'm sure that's probably coming down the pipeline. There is, in theory, an M2 slot in these. I'm not going to try to open mine up to investigate that, but according to the board specs, there is an M2 slot on these that is also bootable. So I guess, in theory, I could actually throw install a distro onto an M2, open this guy up, and put it in there. So that is something else. I do like, and this is kind of a correction of my first video that I did address in the comments there, but it does have that proprietary power port that I didn't like, but it does actually power off the USB 2 as well. So you can power using both those options, which is good. That was something nice. And as far as it is light. It is cheap. I mean, the tablet itself is $100. It does have the feel of a cheap Android tablet. When I compare it to a Samsung tablet that I have back here, if you compare it to a Samsung tablet like I have here, the Samsung tablet has a lot better build quality. It's definitely a glass screen, Gorilla Glass screen. It is. It feels there is metal inside here. Versus this is a plastic screen. It is, it's more cheaply built. It's the same style as I had what I used to call the craplets. We'll get more into that, into the negatives. But for the most part, the hardware itself is actually really good as long as you can figure out how to actually get it to work. So there's where my big pros are. All right. Anyone want to spearhead the cons? Tech, you probably have the most tech. You want to go last? We'll have the glorious symphony of tech.
I just want to say, I think that the tablet is made out of plastic and the screen's made out of plastic, but I do want to say that its design is actually really beautiful. Like on the back, it has like sort of a circular pattern that like shines in the light, kind of. I really like how that works and how holding it feels.
Yeah, it is nice. It does have a good feel. It's not as bad as the old cheap craplets.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
It's like they took one of those craplets and made it actually usable, basically.
Yeah, there you go.
Just usable enough.
All right. Pizza, you want to jump into the cons that you see? Like, why are you still using that Android?
So, the biggest con for me with the Pine phone, this is a hardware issue, I think. I don't know for sure if this can be fixed with software. Is that its modem is really slow. Like downloading updates on it, it doesn't support 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and even 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi is pretty slow on it. I have my ThinkPad over there that also doesn't support 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, and I'd put them in the same room, and one of them, the ThinkPad, still updates way faster than the Pine phone. Not the file speed, but the download speed. And hold on, I'm going to close my door.
Yeah, I actually, when I'm doing a lot of updates or installing a lot of software, I actually just plug in a USB 3 Ethernet port is what I do when I do a lot of updates. Plug it into the system.
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe with the Pine phone, because I do updates a lot because I flash operating systems a lot, and naturally, whenever I do that, I update it directly after. And also, as a developer, when I'm trying to clone Git repos, it takes maybe 3 seconds to clone ICE on my main computer, and it probably takes 30 seconds to do it on the Pine phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I am hoping that in maybe a future hardware revision, I don't know if the SoC that the Pine phone uses supports having a faster modem, but I would really like a faster modem in the next hardware revision of the Pine phone, if that's possible. That is my biggest gripe. And now the reason that I'm using it instead, or the reason I'm still using Android, and I haven't been using Android completely. I've also been using this Nexus 5 right here with Ubuntu Touch. I've been swapping between this and my Android phone. Well, I was until I lost a SIM card tray for it.
Whoops.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna have to order another SIM card tray on eBay or something. Anyways, it's just reliability. Even this Nexus 5 running Ubuntu Touch is way more reliable than the Pine phone running Ubuntu Touch, because Ubuntu Touch depends. I'm just going to use Ubuntu Touch as an example because it's not the best operating system for the Pine tab, but on the Pine phone, it is probably the most usable OS on it.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue is Ubuntu Touch, a lot of its code was built to be running on a phone that had Android on it. So the boot screen, or not the boot screen, the power management, the just a lot of stuff it would take from Android, a lot of important stuff. So the Ubuntu Touch team had a lot of work to do to port their code over to the Pine phone, because the Pine phone does not come with an Android build. So because of that, when Ubuntu Touch first came out for the Pine phone, it was significantly worse battery life than even an Android phone with worse battery, like hardware, like a worse physical battery, because it didn't have any of the stuff from Android's power management or anything. And it also doesn't pick up calls that reliably. And I go biking a lot. Biking's pretty dangerous, so I want to have a phone that I know for sure would work if I called my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I'm still using the Nexus 5 in my Android phone, because even the Nexus 5, Anbox on the Pine phone has to basically fully emulate Android the same way it would run it on a Linux desktop. But Anbox on the Nexus 5 actually kind of passes through to the actual build of Android on it, if I recall correctly. It runs it uses the Android that comes with the phone in Anbox, which means you get way better app compatibility and it runs faster.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Let's see. Tech, do you want me to do the negatives first? Do you want to get in first?
I don't care. However you want to do it. I'm easy.
All right.
Do you want to say it just depends on who they want to? Do they want to hear you rant or they want to hear me rant? That's
yeah, I don't know. Should
who
we
are they here?
Yeah, I don't know. Since
Maybe we
it's
should
my
rant
show,
together.
since it's my yeah, there you go. Let's rant together. All right, one after another. No, we'll let you go first because it's my show. So.
All right, fair enough. Gosh, the issues that I have with the Pinebook Pro predominantly stem from the fact that this is advertised as a ready to go out of the box system, and it just simply isn't. I mean, even now on the product page, they even say the Pinebook Pro is meant to deliver day-to-day Linux or BSD experience to be compelling alternative to mid-range Chromebooks that people then convert into Linux laptops, which is a very strange segment to target. But if you're just targeting mid-range Chromebooks, I mean, mid-range Chromebooks just have much better video playback support on YouTube. I mean, this system unfortunately can't even do 1080p 60. You have to do 1080p 30 or 720p 60 is as good as it gets. Otherwise, it constantly just locks up, and then it buffers for a few seconds, and then it plays for a little bit, and it does it over and over and over. So it's like that on every distro I've tried on here. I've tried Debian, I've tried Manjaro with different desktop environments. Played around with some others as well, like the OpenSUSE, which looks like it was abandoned almost immediately after it got pushed out as an option. So it's things like that. The inconsistency with like Wi-Fi support. When I originally tested this, it would not connect to 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. And then when I put Manjaro in there, it started connecting to 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi and to hidden Wi-Fi networks. But now it no longer connects to hidden Wi-Fi networks. So at least it's got 5 gigahertz support, but no Wi-Fi or no hidden networks, which is unfortunate because my primary network is hidden. So I'm using like my guest network that I set up. And so for some reason, I haven't been able to get my Manjaro to update because I've been having so many issues with it. I think I'm just gonna have to reflash it, but I haven't been able to update it for a couple months, and now all the mirrors are broken, and I've gone to the forums and tried to get them working again. Just haven't had any luck with that. So it maybe Pizza was mentioning a kernel issue earlier. Maybe I avoided an unfortunate fate by not being able to update for once. So
no, the Pinebook Pro is a different SoC than the PineTab, so it wouldn't affect
okay. Yeah, all right. Well, there is one guy who was having an issue with his system when he upgraded to kernel 5.9. His system will lock, but it won't wake up. So he had to downgrade back to 5.8. So it's the software inconsistency for the most part that I have with this system. I mean, the video playback is terrible. For some reason on the original Debian OS, the speakers worked pretty well, but on Manjaro, they sound utterly terrible. Like if you're not using headphones or an external Bluetooth speaker, you're probably not going to be able to hear this thing very easily. So it's just things like that, you know. I mean, again, the hardware is great, like USB and the USB-C, that all works fine, but it's the software implementation side of it, and this is where Purism, since we mentioned Purism earlier, this is where Purism is going to do better because they're working on their software with their hardware.
Yep.
And I would say it's what System 76 gets right, because they're more in that vein as well. While Pine64 is like, here's hardware, go have fun. But again, my issue is that the Pinebook Pro is advertised as a ready-to-go, off-the-shelf product you can buy and be content with, and I just don't think that that's true.
Absolutely. I've experienced basically the same thread that you're saying is. Now, of course, the Pine Tab is not advertised as being ready to go, for sure. But at the same time, I find that the hardware is fine. It's the software is bad. You pull this thing out and you boot up UB ports on this thing, and it is a very poor representation of what the Pine Tab is capable of doing. I mean, I ordered it with the keyboard. The mouse pad is locked into a 600 by 800 block, and I can't access the entirety of the screen. Keyboard was a little bit inconsistent. That seems to be a little bit done. I can't install you can't install software from the terminal. It's has it all locked. You have to install it through the software store, and the software store has less software than the first version of the Windows Store when the RT tablets from Windows first came out. It was that bad. Like no Office suites, nothing on there but a bunch of things that look like knockoff Chinese frightening programs that don't even actually do anything you're looking to do. That's how bad it was. Now, in theory, there's a way to get in and build together different profiles by which you can port in software from different places. I was never able to get that to work, but the thing was so hard to use, I just gave up even trying. So I think that the same problems UB Ports is having is on the same thread that why Ubuntu could never get Unity 8 to work. It looks really cool. It looks modern. It's just completely non-functional. And that's really the experience that I had on it. There's really nothing to do. But with this, you can go on and they have a variety of different tools, operating systems you can grab from. And the one that I'm actually using now is, bouncing back and forth. I have played with all of them. Right now I'm playing with Debian. I've done the Arch. I've looked at Manjaro. I've looked at Postmarket. And with Postmarket, you can get full GNOME, full Plasma, or Plasma Mobile or Posh, which is a mobile version. My biggest gripe with Posh right now, it's the one that's most developed and the most functional. But for some reason, 3 weeks ago, they pulled auto rotate out of it. This is a tablet, for crying out loud. I want it to auto rotate. It was working perfectly fine. Now it's no longer even an option. Plasma Mobile allegedly has auto rotate, but it doesn't work. And even in the updated versions of Plasma, it removed the auto rotate option as well. And no auto rotate option. So the tablet, what was designed as a tablet, was auto rotating perfectly fine when I bought it, but now is not working because they changed the software.
Auto rotate isn't built into Phosh. That's a hack that other distros add into Phosh.
Well, they should add it back in. Or provide me information about it back in, because it was working perfectly fine on both Arch and on Manjaro. Now, Manjaro, they had an issue where the screens were rotated 90 degrees from where they were supposed to be, but Arch was working perfectly fine. They pulled it out. But nevertheless, it's designed for a tablet. It should be there because it works and it's functional. And frankly, that was the thing that made it not a system. So right now I have it hooked up to the keyboard. It behaves perfectly fine like a little computer, but the only one of the operating systems that actually looked at it and said, hey, this is supposed to be a tablet, is Manjaro. How do we know? Because it actually gives you something with large icons. You can actually interact with it like a tablet. You just couldn't rotate it right. And so there were so many negatives to it that it's got a lot of development to go. The hardware is good. The software needs a little bit of work. In fact, it needs a lot of work. UB ports, a lot of things like the volume, the Bluetooth, stuff like that wasn't working. I'm not sure if they are now. Arch, all work perfectly fine. Debian, I don't know. I'll have to get this thing updated and see. But that's kind of what my experience has been. As far as treating it with Arch as a notebook, it worked perfectly. Using it as a tablet, not so much. So those are kind of my gripe lists. If one wants to jump in with anything else. Yeah, in fact, Pizza, they had a patch for auto rotate, but that was taken down at some point in time. So.
Yeah. Also, I think you said earlier that you can't flash stuff to the eMMC. That's not true. There's a thing called Jump Drive, which you put on an SD card, and then you plug the SD card into the Pine Tab or the Pine phone, and then Jump Drive, and then you plug the tablet into your computer, and Jump Drive will give your computer access to the eMMC, and then you can flash whatever OS you want to use on it.
Is that new? Because I do recall them saying specifically at this time you can't flash. Maybe that was just direct.
Jump Drive isn't new, but I think when you got it, Jump Drive didn't support the Pine Tab yet. So
that's possible.
That might be why. So on the Pine phone, it's been around since the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with it yet. I wanna give UB port some time to develop itself a little bit, at least until I can find out if there's a better, more completely stable thing I can throw on it, because I'm not particularly happy with any of the builds that are available. I think post-market gets pretty stinking close, but post-market is so limited in the software they have available. So,
my issue with Ubuntu Touch is I feel like if they would have gone, Lomary is an amazing desktop for a tablet. It's just the issue is Ubuntu Touch, instead of allowing you to use apt or Flatpak or Snap even, they're forcing you to use something called a click package, which is not used anywhere else in the Linux world. So because of that, not that many developers package click packages, and to make click packages worse, they're kind of like APK files where you have to have the original file in order to install them. So what the Open Store does is the Open Store is kind of like a third-party app store for Windows or something, where, like, let's say, I don't know, Software Hippo. Sorry, my mom just came into my room. So like Software Hippo or like a sketchy download site like download.net or something. Obviously, it's not that sketchy because it is ran by the UBports team, but it's like a place, it's like one of those sites where you download all the EXEs and everything, and then you have to install them. Or it's like the Play Store where you can't really install it off the command line, but obviously all the APKs are on the Play Store and you just install it through the Play Store. So that I think is the biggest issue with Ubuntu Touch. Lowmary is probably the most usable desktop. It's just it isn't being able to be used to its full potential because of all the limitations with quick packages. So I think what's going to happen, I think that Manjaro Lowmary is probably, right now it's in alpha and it's not that stable. But in the future, I think it's going to be one of the best options because you get the stable experience of Lowmary and you'll be able to run third-party apps using something other than quick packages because you'll have access to Pacman and Flatpaks and everything.
Yeah, I guess we're coming. Let's see. Auto rotate is an open source option only. Jump drives like loading things onto EMC, like loading ISO onto a hard drive. It's not new. I wonder if there's other applications for that. Sounds fun.
Yeah, I'll put a link to Jump Drive in the chat.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's saying it is new. I think he was talking in reference to specifically on the Pine tab.
Yeah, I think
tried.
I think Pizza's right. It probably just did not have the support when I got mine. So, not Gary says FOSS ebook. What do you mean FOSS ebook? FOSS ebook reader?
You can also use it to rescue your Pine tab if you have an issue because it allows you to get access to the eMMC from your computer. So, yeah.
Interesting. All right. So I guess we covered quite a bit of stuff. I'm still updating software. I am 68%. I'm adding a lot of the software that I had on the Arch system. I'm gonna hopefully I can hack my way back into the Arch system because I put a lot into that. I don't want to have to reflash it because it'll take a long time to fix. But
yeah, I don't know why Mobian for me it is really stable, but it seems to be a lot slower than the other options. Like, it seems like opening apps and everything, it's like trying to run, like, I describe the experience of Mobian as like getting a fresh Linux distro, like my favorite Fedora, and putting it on a hard drive, whereas ArchArm is like taking that Linux distro and putting it on an SSD. I don't know why applications and everything launch so slow, but that is my issue with Mobian. It is very slow for some reason.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. I'll put a few applications on it and see what I get. But yeah, let me look at the list of Pine tabs. So we're gonna head over to the wiki page here, and then if we go down to Pine tab, they have down here at the bottom, UB ports is pre-installed. Let's see, Postmarket OS. This is the one that I thought the Postmarket was one of the better ones, and it does have it has a variety of different options. I did not see Kodi XFCE ones, but I did play with Posh, Plasma Mobile, Plasma Desktop, and GNOME 3. I did try all of those on it. And
yeah, Postmarket OS is a little bit challenging to install because you have to use PM Bootstrap. So I'm going to plug my channel here, though. I have a tutorial on how to do that.
Excellent. Go for it. Yeah. Yeah, if you just grab the install scripts, it'll install it to the card. No big deal. It's pretty easy. So latest images. The biggest problem I have with Postmarket, as I said, it was lacking a lot of software that I needed for production stuff.
That's my issue too. Alpine Linux to me doesn't make that much sense, probably because it's out of my comfort zone. I've never really given it a spin. So, and its repo is very small. So I find myself using a lot of Flatpaks on Postmarket OS, and Flatpaks also seem to run slower on the Pine phone than they do on the desktop. Like on the desktop, you probably won't notice the speed difference between a Flatpak and a regular app or Pacman package. But on the Pine phone, where the hardware is super limited and the software still needs optimizations, the speed difference between Flatpaks and regular apps is a lot more noticeable. So that is my issue with Postmarket OS. I feel like it if you're gonna make a mobile OS, then you have to. I feel like you kind of have to. You're kind of responsible to maintain a lot of the packages that a lot of phones and stuff are gonna want. You're gonna want to have on it. Like it does have some of the essentials. Like it has Chatty, Purism Chatty. It has the phone app and everything. It has It has basic web browsers, but I use my phone as a music player quite often. I'd connect it to a Bluetooth speaker and listen to music, and I have done that on the Pine phone through Ubuntu Touch and other operating systems like Arch ARM, because the Lollipop music player works very well on the Pine phone. Post-market OS doesn't package Lollipop, and that's like it. I'm pretty sure that Lollipop even ships out of the box of the Weepin 5, or I could be wrong about wrong about that, but I remember seeing a picture with it running on the Weepin 5 on its home screen.
That's interesting. I could not get Lollipop working on Arch. It was the built-in. It comes pre-installed, but it would not work. It wouldn't play. I couldn't get to find any media. It just wasn't working. I actually ended up throwing Clementine on there, which did work just fine.
You might have an issue with Tracker for detecting your music.
Okay.
That happens with a lot of no music players. That is an issue of no music, Rhythmbox, and Lollipop. And it happens on Arch sometimes, and all you have to do to fix it is reboot.
I tried it several times. It didn't work at all.
Okay.
Well, if I can get back in the Arch system, I'll investigate it again.
Yeah.
I will let you know. We can work together on that, I guess.
Yeah, but
right.
It's just key applications like Lollipop. That is probably the biggest app that I want that isn't pre-installed, isn't on post-market OS. A lot of the Plasma mobile apps aren't on post-market OS. And a lot of this isn't an issue of all the apps, but a lot of apps have patches to make them work on the Pine phone better. And post-market OS seems to be one of the last distros to get a lot of them, even though a lot of these patches are actually made by post-market OS developers. It still seems to lag behind in that. So
they're developing, they're just not porting them to it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Ooh, here's a big test. Can this guy see network shares out of the box? That's something I have to fight with Arch for.
You should try Lollipop on Mobian right now.
If I can access the network shares, I will. Because that's actually something I had to fight with. Oh, I can! Dude, I'm loving Mobian so far. I had to fight with Arch to get this to work.
What do you need? What do you use network shares for?
Music.
As to share all your files. Oh, you're 15, my bad. Connor Row, 14 plus plus. Oh, the Intel jokes.
What?
They're trying to guess how old Pizza is, and I said 14, but he's 15. But then Connor Rowe said 14 plus plus, and I think that's a joke towards Intel's manufacturing process.
Or just programming in
plus,
general.
plus.
New tab.
Chance Thomas in the chat says, I always recommend people to Linux and they love it. I put them on Mint and they always never call back. That's actually true. I did the same thing with my father, and Tom here is a major Linux Mint promoter.
Absolutely.
I usually promote Linux Mint because of its software center, but right now I think that I'm going to promote Fedora. Probably not the GNOME edition since GNOME's so different, but I think I'm going to start promoting GNOME Cinnamon or Fedora Cinnamon or something. Just because Fedora seems to run really fast. It uses ButterFS, which has backup features built in, and GNOME Software Center actually works on Fedora because Fedora actually maintains the package kit stuff for DNF, whereas Ubuntu, the package kit stuff, package kit, by the way, is what lets GNOME software run on basically every package manager without needing to change the entire code base. So package kit is kind of a translation layer, I guess, and it basically tells GNOME software what package manager to use. And Fedora actually maintains package kit, and a lot of other distros don't do that. So that's why GNOME Software Center works better on Fedora.
Wow, I mean, things actually work when they're maintained. Amazing.
I know.
All right, we're gonna boot up Lollipop. We'll see what happens. I threw one
Oh,
song
boy,
over
here we
onto
go.
it.
The moment of
works.
truth.
Now, of course, in Posh, I found that sometimes I have to toggle with the toggle around the audio to get stuff to work. So
Yeah.
but that's normal on the Pine tab. Hopefully, they get that fixed sometime.
I like Fosh, but I think GNOME is a lot of a better choice for the Pine tab. Well, it would be if the performance enhancements, or if GNOME enhanced their performance, since it is pretty heavy.
All right, Lollipop, let's go. Come on. Okay, there it goes. Okay, hey, it did find the music.
What music do you have on it?
I threw Beethoven's Fifth Symphony on there. You know, something really obscure for the copyright claimers to steal, to say I stole it. You know. Is it playing? How can I tell if it's actually playing? I guess that's down there. Okay, so let's.
Yeah, Mel Gibson, I'm with you when it comes to KDE. I actually, out of desperation, because I've not historically been a KDE fan, I put the KDE environment on this Manjaro install on my PineBook Pro. It's actually been very good. So it's been so long since I've used KDE, I might come back around.
Yeah, there you go.
Kate's Network says, I'm actually a tall 5-year-old genius.
Well, you're 3 times the age of a 5-year-old, so we can say you're 3 times as tall as a 5-year-old. 3 times as smart, hopefully.
Probably 2.9 times as smart.
You can put it on one of those graphs that Apple had on their recent keynote, which has no information. It just has bars going across for no information about what actual benchmarks they ran.
Yeah, I was excited about Apple ARM until the bootloaders. I found out that it's forced on Mac OS. Like, they're showing Linux running on it, like, I think through Parallels. Why not add boot camp support? Like, if Apple would have made their bootloaders open and they would have allowed custom OSs, then ARM on Linux would just boom, and we'd see a ton of progress on ARM for Linux distros. But that didn't happen.
Unfortunately.
It would appear that audio is not working on Mobian.
Audio strikes again with Pine products.
Yeah. Audio's not working on Mobian, it looks like.
Yeah. Try update. A lot of issues for me get fixed when I do an update and a reboot.
Yeah, I did update and reboot everything.
Oof.
I think they did talk about, Apple talked about, or I was reading an article last week, I think it was earlier this week, about Microsoft or Apple working with Microsoft to get Windows running on ARM on Apple Silicon. There's something about boot camp code being in Big Sur or something like that. It was kind of a conjecture, like a speculation piece. It wasn't anything hard.
Another thing I actually
it says audio.
Microsoft one. Oh, sorry. I said real quick. Another one that I saw. Microsoft is apparently working on porting Microsoft Office to Linux.
Yeah, I did hear.
Teams.
I did hear that, and I think what they're going to do is they're going to make a port just to say, "Look, we love Linux. Look what we did," and it's going to be a really terrible port, like they did with Teams.
I mean, probably because like LibreOffice is frankly still better in many respects.
Teams for Linux. Teams for Linux is so bad that I prefer using the web browser version of Teams.
Wow.
Yeah, well, for as long as Office has been on Mac OS, if you start getting into like some of the more advanced like VB scripting stuff that you can do in Excel and Access and all that, it still doesn't work right on Mac OS. Like they're not one-to-one. You can't like open the same spreadsheet on Mac OS and get the same results or have it run as you would and hope it would, or you would expect it would. So, and even on like the Office for web, they don't have a lot of the advanced features that the actual Windows programs have. So I don't think there's anything like that is going to be coming to Linux for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Let's see.
So should we answer the question of the title?
Sure, let's go ahead and do that as a good wrap up. Is Pine64 a viable alternative?
I guess I'll start. I think it could be. For now, it does need some work, but the hardware is amazing, and the hardware does make it a viable alternative. It's the software that needs to be worked on. So I think right now it is not a viable alternative, but I think if we ask the same question a year from now, I think we'll get a different answer.
Okay. Tech?
I think that a year from now it would be a different answer if we got something with a little more powerful processor and graphical oomph, because that seems to be a big issue with, I think, at least with some of the user experience side of things. Like again, like video playback for 1080p 60 is not an option, and I wouldn't even imagine trying to do like 1440 or 4K. So
yeah,
I think that we need a lot more software maturity, and given the way Pine works with the community on that, and I'm going to say the kind of disparate lack of direction, I think that we're not going to see that for a while. I like ARM as a company, though. I think they stand for a lot of good things. But in terms of outside of like basic web browsing, listening to music, or playing video off of the local drive, I think it's fine for that, but I wouldn't expect it to do anything more than that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I see it as something up and coming, and I think that given the time and given the maturity, it will function. Maybe we could use a little bit more leadership to guide a few direct products. But the problem, of course, it's the same overall product in Linux in and of itself. Is it worth the time to do that? Frankly, I think it is. It's just that we just need to get people excited about looking for the alternatives and making them work. So the hardware is fine; it's coming along. If they just took this current design and just added a little bit of firmness to it, it would raise the price a little bit, but it would produce a really good piece of hardware. But I would definitely support not doing that until the software is in line. So it's coming along. It really is. Of course, we didn't have anything like this, a year or two ago that was even close to viable. So the fact we're moving along with it is good. And hopefully I'll be able to rescue my Arch system and have that, because I mean, literally that is a full functioning mini computer. But wasn't really a tablet as much, but we'll hopefully get there soon as well.
Well, I'd say philosophically speaking, I mean, the fact that we can even have the conversation of is it viable and actually have to consider if it is, I think is a good thing. Like I said, I think Pine64 and everybody who's supporting the Pine products are moving in the right direction. There's moving in the right direction in a lot of different directions,
Yeah.
And I feel like what makes Pine64 so good is one, the transparency that they know that the software isn't complete yet, but they're still making it available to the public to try and change that faster. Whereas Purism, I do like Purism, but I feel like that with the Librem 5, they were promising a consumer-ready Linux phone, basically. And so I think that they didn't, when all of the shipping dates came, I think that they didn't want to admit that it wasn't ready yet. And instead of shipping them out anyway to get more developers going in, instead they just only shipped like 10 of each batch or something until it was fully ready, because they didn't want people to get their Librem 5s with bad software. And I do like Pine64's approach slightly better, because you do get the hardware sooner, and also the software does develop faster. But I think when the Librem 5 does come out, the software is going to be a lot more ready than when the Pine phone came out in January.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, Tech Hab's gone.
Yep. Oh, no. He disappeared. All right. Oh, there he is. He's back.
There he is.
Tech's back. Greetings. Welcome back.
Yeah. Apparently, if I right click and then move my mouse at the same time inside of my browser window, it's a shortcut with the back button.
Oh, there you go. That works. All right. I think we'll go ahead and wrap this guy up here, guys. So thanks for hanging out, everybody. And yeah, I mean, there was the good and the bad and the ugly of Pine64. Definitely worth, if you're a tinkerer or a developer, definitely worth looking into. If you're just looking for something consumer ready, give it some more time to mature and develop. But you know, so far there's things that I really like about them, and there's things that are not as much. But hey, for the price of $100 to have a little mini computer with a keyboard and stuff, that's actually not actually a bad deal. So as long as I can get it to function again. We'll get there, though. We'll get there. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And you guys plug your channels real quick before we go.
My channel is PizzaLovingNerd, and I am doing a lot of videos on the Pine phone, although I am taking a little bit of break now so I can develop my operating system and get a release going. And I am also going to diversify my channel soon and focus more on general Linux hardware, not just laser focused on the Pine phone.
Excellent.
So,
and,
yeah.
Tech?
My channel is Tech Haberdashery. It's not very active right now. I've just been terribly busy in my personal life. I had a death in the family. They're working with the church. I'm also looking to get married here before too terribly long. I'm looking at buying houses. So it's just been super busy for me, and I have not had time to produce any kind of videos for my channel. So it's kind of dead at the moment. But I'm hoping to get started back up early part of 2021. So watch these two guys' channels in the meantime.
All right, I'm just looking up what Serge said to look at. Have a look at. Is this Qualabet? Is this a Linux distro? Oh, is it an Arch Linux, I guess? I don't know. It's a music player. Oh, you're looking at music players. Okay, for that. All right, cool. All right, well, thanks, guys, and we will be back. I think our next live show should be, Wednesday, I think. So be looking for that. So we'll catch you guys later.
I put both of our channels in the chat.
I saw that. Thank you very much.